They did this to Columbia. And then they put the crosshairs on every other elite institution, including, but not limited to, Harvard. They went to Harvard and they said, fire the Middle Eastern Studies guy, Turkish dude. Boom, he's gone. Okay? They fired his second in command. Harvard folded, just like Columbia folded. But then Trump was like, yeah.
Demands to control parts of its curriculum, along with the school's admissions process. Nikki Batiste is here now with that story. Nikki, good morning to you.
Gail, good morning. Harvard is the latest target of Trump's crackdown on higher education institutions, facing pressure to cave to the administration's demands. A group of Harvard professors, including one we spoke to, sued the administration to block the withholding of nearly $9 billion in funding. And as we found out, lingering cuts could impact critical research.
Harvard's refusal to bow to the Trump administration is costing them more than $2 billion in funding.
He wants us to be using the Trump syllabus instead of our own syllabi, our own teaching. And that's a violation of the First Amendment. It's a violation of academic freedom. He is trying to use the coercive power of the federal government, including massive funding cuts.
The White House says it will withhold multi-year grants after the school refused to accept several demands. Those included sharing hiring and admissions data and allowing a third party to audit programs that the administration says fuel anti-Semitic harassment. President Trump also threatened to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status on Tuesday.
The president's position on this is grounded in common sense, in the basic principle that Jewish American students, or students of any faith, should not be illegally harassed and targeted on our nation's college campuses.
Like Harvard, Johns Hopkins University is one of 60 schools under investigation by the Department of Education. Researchers there are already facing more than $800 million in funding cuts made by the Department of Government Efficiency last month.
These patients are on clinical trials because they have no other options.
Dr. Elizabeth Jaffe is the deputy director of Johns Hopkins Kimmel Cancer Center.
Yeah, here we go. The IRS is making plans to rescind the tax-exempt status of Harvard University. And here's the thing, okay? Here's another 9-0 Supreme Court decision coming down. This will literally, I think, this will be the fastest 9-0 unanimous Supreme Court decision of unconstitutionality that you've ever seen. It'll spin your head, okay? But who knows what'll happen, because the admin seemingly doesn't care. This right here is such a overt. Why'd you delete the link about Elon Musk's cummies? I don't want to talk about Elon's cum today. Depends on how they interpret it at this point, bro. I mean, it's clear that they do take a stance, right? When something is glaringly, obviously unconstitutional, especially in a way that undermines the judiciary's power completely, like the due process violation and not listening to the court orders, like that kind of stuff, they definitely will come out against. But who cares? Supreme Court could be making a unanimous decision again, and Trump will just turn around and go, 9-0 in our favor, right, Steve? Right, Steve? 9-0 in our favor. And then that's it. That's it. Because we don't live in reality, okay? We live in something different. In our favor. That's what he did. That's what he did with the previous Supreme Court decision. What's the point of Congress at this point? He's doing the anti-Semitism bill plus bill to strip 501c3 status from orgs. Yeah, he is doing that. Everything sucks. I do think constitutionality is something Republicans care about. Not all of them. No, they don't. Dude, I'm telling you right now, okay? When Donald Trump molested the money and still continues to molest it with his prickly little hands every now and then when he feels bored. When he says, I'm going to do the global economy because I'm bored, and he keeps molesting the money, that's the one thing you're not allowed to do. And he's been able to withstand the negative impact of that, because you could literally do mass deportations in this country. You could do Nuremberg-style race laws in this country. You could advocate to deport every gay person in this country, okay? But the one thing you can't do is the bag, okay? The entire system relies on not in the bag. And he did. He did. He for a little bit. He backed away a little bit from it. He still did a little bit, okay? He's still molesting it. But even then, seemingly his sycophants, based their way through that entire process, bro. It is crazy. It is crazy, bro. So if he can do that, and still be fine, I think he can do whatever he wants.
Helping even patients with the worst possible cancers, metastatic lung cancer, metastatic colon cancer, metastatic melanoma.
Yeah, I do want to remind everybody we're 3 months in, by the way. So that's cool. 3 months in, by the way.
These were deadly cancers 10 years ago. They're now chronic diseases like diabetes.
About the end
When
of the
Johns
fourth
Hopkins
month.
loses funding from the NIH, is it fair to say that will cost lives in the long term?
It's going to cost lives not only in the long term, but in the short term, because if they stop the funding, we have to say to the patient the next day, we don't have the funding coming in.
Without your clinical trial, what would have happened?
I probably would have died.
Vanessa Brandon was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2014 and says a clinical trial for immunotherapy at Johns Hopkins saved her life.
When you hear that this trial could be in jeopardy from these cuts, what do you think?
It just breaks my heart that this money is being cut. I'm a Black woman, you know, just barely making it at times. It's just so heartbreaking because there's other people out there in the same position that I'm in that want to live.
A Harvard spokesperson told me, quote, the majority of endowment money is restricted and cannot be touched. It can only be used for its intended purpose. Where endowment money goes is usually decided when it's donated.
Yeah, except this is why you kind of have an endowment. Like, am I crazy? Like, if you don't use the endowment on this, then you're just a gay hedge fund. You know what I mean? You're like a woke, annoying gay hedge fund. That's all you are. Like, there's got to be a point where Harvard goes, we got 50 billion. Okay, we'll go band for band, bitch. This is the moment. It's ironic because, like, as I talked about before, they didn't even do this initially. Make no mistake. Trump administration did this to Columbia. Okay, they did this to Columbia, and then they put the crosshairs on every other elite institution, including but not limited to Harvard. They went to Harvard and they said, fire the Middle Eastern Studies guy, Turkish dude. Boom, he's gone. Okay, they fired his second in command. Harvard folded, just like Columbia folded. But then Trump was like, yeah, and also cut out this gay shit. No more DEI. No more. You need to bring in more Republicans. You need to do affirmative action for conservatives at Harvard. And that's when they were like, whoa, enough is enough. This is completely unacceptable. We do not want you to touch us like that. That is up. Yeah, here is Ryan Grimm also looking at a Charlie Kirk tweet. This is the entire point of the assault on colleges and universities, just a matter of the cost to us as a society. In 2021, over 96% of political donations from Harvard faculty went to Democrat candidates. Defund Harvard. Harvard is defying the Trump administration after its own crackdown on academic freedom. Before Harvard rejected Trump's demands, it instituted numerous changes in an attempt to counteract accusations of anti-Semitism. Holy, even the Forward is writing this. God damn. Perhaps they're writing this maybe to say, like, Harvard did the right thing. So now they're writing in defense of Harvard, maybe? I don't know. Holy Toledo. Yeah, they took a big stance. Harvard took a big stance against the Trump admin this week. But before they did that, they quietly caved on a lot of the initiatives of the Trump administration. Do you understand? It initially cracked down on some of the very departments of the administration letters accused of anti-Semitism, specifically the Divinity School and the Middle Eastern Studies Department. At the end of March, the Divinity School suspended its Religion, Conflict, and Peace initiative amid accusations of the program, which had for the past several years, since before October 7, focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, was biased against Israel. The accusations were tied, in part, to a lawsuit from former Divinity School student Shabbos Kestenbaum, a self-described progressive who spoke at the Republican National Convention and endorsed Donald Trump, accusing Harvard of violating the rights of Jewish students. The Harvard Jewish Alumni Association also said in a report that spring that the Peace Initiative appears to focus entirely on the Palestinians. I wonder why the Peace Initiative focuses entirely on the fucking victims of this rather than the perpetrators of it. This must be anti-Semitic. Bro, stop showing me Ethan Klein laughing at Cutie Cinderella again. I don't want to see it, okay? Please, lock in. Diane Moore, the program's founding director, retired abruptly in January, a semester earlier than planned. The program's assistant director, Hussein Rashid, also said he would retire at the end of the year in a statement sharply criticizing Harvard for condoning hate against Arabs and Muslims and accusing the university of interfering with the department's programming, which they did. Divinity School students were center stage in pro-Palestinian campus activism at Harvard in the wake of October 7 in one high-profile incident caught on camera and cited in the Trump administration's letter of demands to Harvard. A Jewish business school student was confronted by a Divinity School student when he walked through a die-in protest in support of Gaza. That's the reason why they said this was anti-Semitic, because a business school student walked up to a staged protest with a phone camera to try to film every single person's face so they can. And the field marshals, I remember, literally stopped that person from doing that. And they called that blocking a Jewish student's right to walk to class or whatever the fuck they're saying. Harvard also suspended his public health school's research partnership with Birzeit University, the largest university in the West Bank, and disbanded the undergraduate activist Palestinian Solidarity Committee for violating campus use rules. Additionally, the university imposed a requirement for all arts and science centers on campus to meet guidelines on intellectual diversity, which each center's director required to submit its programming for approval. At the end of March, Harvard forced 2 faculty leaders at the Center for Middle Eastern Studies from their posts. Center director Jamal Kafadar, a professor of Turkish studies, along with the center's associate director, history professor Rosie Bashir, were asked to step down. Both remain employed by the university. Harvard student newspaper connected the turnover at the Center for Middle Eastern Studies and the Divinity School to Harvard's efforts to distance itself from accusations of anti-Semitism after the Trump administration announced the university was under scrutiny. These efforts, however, clearly failed to placate the Trump administration. There's no indication that the stand Garber, Harvard's Jewish president, is taking against pressure from the Trump administration will cause the school to roll back any of these previous efforts to dispel accusations of anti-Semitism. Harvard may have rejected the government's demands in the name of freedom, thought, and inquiry, but it's willing to crack down on certain ideas itself. Okay, I take it back. This person is very clearly a critical voice here, and I apologize for assuming, because it's Forward magazine, that she was going to glaze Harvard's initial crackdown on quote-unquote anti-Semitism. Forward or Squishy Libs? You're thinking of Tablet magazine? Yeah, but even Forward at times will write some fucking insane articles. The only institution, the only like Jewish institution, because these papers present themselves as like Jewish lifestyle papers that I firmly trust is Jewish Currents, which of course friend of the show Noah Colwyn used to be the senior editor of. So yeah, forward articles can range from liberal Zionist takes to sometimes anti-Zionist takes to ultra Zionist takes in general. No matter which way you slice it, intellectual diversity initiatives are a good thing. Having conservative voices in higher education is valuable. It's not like they're hard to find either. Just a few hours on the sex offender registry and you got a list of potential candidates. We're talking about fucking Harvard. Alan Dershowitz is professor emeritus at Harvard University. Don't worry, there's plenty of conservative intellectual diversity there. It's Harvard constitutionally defending the lowering of the age of consent from a constitutional perspective. Alan, I only wore my underwear at the Jeffrey Epstein mansion, Dershowitz. Okay? Allegedly. Anyway. O hocayı sadece kovdular çünkü araştırmaları Harvard'ın ve hatta tüm Amerika'nın aslında büyük Türk devletinin bir parçası olduğunu kanıtlamak üzereydi. Gerçekler ortaya çıkmasın diye susturuldu. Turan uyanıyor. Engelleyemezler. Masa biziz. This chatter is amazing. I assume this is Google Translate. He said they actually fired the Turkish professor because he was on the verge of uncovering the secret that America was actually a part of the great Turkish republic, and he was about to prove it. He was on the verge of proving this, and in order to shelter the public from the truth, they silenced him. The Turan is awakening. They cannot stop us. JJJ Harvard, JJJ. Yeah. Neo-Ottomanists rise up. It's true. Okay. This is Google Translate. I'm a Jewish white man. I'm an American Jew, but I wish I was a base Turk like you. I mean, there's Jewish Turks. You could have been a Turkish Jew instead of an American one. Instead of an America one. Also, this is literally Felix Biederman, okay? I'm an American Jew, but I wish I was a base Turk like you. Felix Biederman. Anyway. All right, everybody. March is here. We're going to film the fucking podcast. We're going to film the podcast right now. So I got to go. But be kind to one another. What a fucking roller coaster we had today. I love you all. I will see you tomorrow as always. Okay.